Hello, this is Aurora, and today we will be learning how to make pixel art trees using the same applications as in the last tutorial. So the first thing is we're gonna need some references for our trees. So I've dug up some pictures from Google for different types of trees, like pine trees and spruces, and that's not a reference, and some Mediterranean trees as well. So I'll try and do the this one. It kind of looks like a maple tree, so I'll just copy this into my editor, and then I have my sprite image here, or what it will be a sprite image. I've created a background layer, and I've created a new layer which I'll start drawing the tree on top of. So first I'm just gonna pick a color for the bark. Pick a small brush like this, and I'll start drawing out the main trunk of the tree. And as it goes towards the top, it's going to get smaller. I'll draw some branches. Like this, roughly emulating what's on the picture. Maybe widen it towards the bottom. Since I'm going to be making lots of leaves all around, I'll probably move this whole tree a little lower, give some space for the leaves in here. A few more branches here and there. Okay, that's good enough. I'll do some fixing up where the branches are too thin, or just kind of fixing the thickness where it doesn't seem right. We got like blocky edges like here. There we go. Then I'm just gonna actually fix that one as well. Select the whole thing so that only the visible branch area is selected. Like this. I'm gonna start shading it with the lighten/darken brush. So I'm gonna pick a brush the size of roughly the original trunk size I was using. So I'm gonna start from the bottom here. And brighten it from the middle of the trunk. And I'll make my brush a little smaller as I need to go higher up where the trunk shrinks in circumference. And the branches, they're gonna be smaller. I'll maybe increase the strength of the brush a little bit and zoom in a little closer. And that gives it some depth. It's a three-dimensional looking tree, even though it's a two-dimensional graphic. use just 1 pixel size for the tiny branches here. And you can draw some bark with both the lighten and darken brushes. Just dark and light lines here and there, so it kind of seems somewhat irregular and tree-like instead of a straight tube. I'll do the opposites with a dark brush on the edges. I'll darken the edges, maybe the bottoms of the branches, assuming that sunlight is coming from the top, therefore the shadows would be on the bottom. Okay, then I'll adjust the color a little bit. I might as well use my reference image here. Say a little bit more red. You can use whatever tool you have at your disposal to change the coloring. You can literally use the colorize tool, make the color you want, or you can use hue and saturation adjustments to do it. Maybe I could make it more red, turning this wheel. That's good. Right, I've got my branches here. Gonna make a second layer and a third layer. I'm gonna put one of these layers under these branches and one of them on top of it. And I'm first gonna start on the bottom, you know, the layer that I put under the branches. I'm just gonna pick a color straight from here. I'm gonna pick one of the darker leaves that are on the background, you know, way back there instead of on the front. I'll maybe pick a brush size of 2, and then I'm just gonna start drawing leaves. And probably fill it up a little bit even where there are no branches, because we're not going to see all of the branches in a tree anyway. Some of it is going to be obscured by other leaves from other branches, just so that they roughly follow the shape of the branches we've drawn here. Then you can change the color of the brush a little bit, maybe make it a little brighter. Add a few more leaves here and there. There we go. And next we'll go to the top layer, which is on top of the tree trunk and the branches, and we pick a brighter color. And I'll repeat the same process. You can draw a few less leaves on the top layer. Like that. Do the same thing as we did before, except maybe this time, because this was already quite a bright brush color, so I'm gonna pick a darker one. Now if you feel that we're obscuring too much of the branches, if you start to miss the previous shaded branches that we just draw, and it's too much of it is hidden under the leaves that we put on this new layer, then we can simply just, for example, copy the branch layer, put it on top, and then just kind of selectively erase some parts and leave some in. So I'm using the eraser brush to erase some bits but leaving some in. Maybe I'll leave that bit in. Oops. Okay. I'm quite happy with the arrangement of the leaves now. Now, next thing I have to do is I have to shade these leaves. And how we're gonna do that is actually, on this instance, I'm just gonna blend these visible layers together. And then I'm just going to select all the green shades using the select color range tool. You'll probably have something similar. I'll do it a few times since we got so many different shades. And now I've got all the green leaves selected. I'm just gonna start using the lighten/darken brush again. And I'll go for a brush size of 32. So assuming the light kind of comes from high up, maybe a little bit from the left, I'll start drawing like a bright area here. And then a dark area on the opposite edge. And then, because when you get the branches, the big branches that kind of branch out into smaller branches, you notice the tree is kind of it comprises a series of clusters, so it's not like one giant blob, it's like a bunch of clusters. So you can, like, maybe this is one cluster, brighten up this one a bit and then shade it so that it's clearly like it's like a blob of its own in here. Do the same here and here and here. And now if we're unhappy with how light or dark some of the leaves became, we can just we can either use contrast to reduce the contrast, or you can use something like, you know, brightness levels / curves, whatever you've got in your program. So I don't want to darken the bright bits because I think they're alright. So I really just want to bring up the brightness of the darkest bits. And then because they've lost a little bit of their color, I'll adjust the saturation levels back up a bit. And now some more touches on the trunk itself. So right now we've got the selection. We've still got the selection of all the green stuff. We want the branches to be shaded by the leaves. So you see them, this reference image, the leaves cast shadows on the branches, and few of the branches really show very brightly deep into the leaf clusters. So I'm just gonna invert the selection and use the brighten / darken tool to shade some of these branches. It's starting to look pretty good. There's some final touches that I can apply, you know, just remove the selection and just use a tiny brush with the lighten / darken tool. Maybe make it really strong and shade some of the individual leaves here and there, drawing a shadow on the bottom of them. It doesn't have to be very accurate. I mean, the whole thing's basically just a giant mess of twigs and leaves anyway. Brighten the leaves on the top, darken them on the bottom. Especially where the color looks a little bit flat. There we go. And if you don't like the holes in the middle, like I prefer to just kind of fill them up in a little sprite graphic like this, then you can use the magic wand to just select the outside area, invert the selection, and just a few ways of doing this, but I can just create a bottom layer underneath this current layer and just use some really dark color, green color, and fill it with that. And if you want, you can remove some of the square shapes on the edges by just using, actually you need to blend these two layers first, or else the dark green color which is created on the bottom layer, which is replace what we're erasing. So if you want to make it look a little less square on the edges, you may want to tweak it with the eraser tool like this. And finally, maybe do some color adjustments. I think our reference image is actually a bit more gray than a real tree like that would be, so mine is a bit more red. Regardless, I'll try to make it look a little closer to reference. And then, because I'm not really happy with some of the darker bits here, which are a little too gray, I'm just gonna use color range tool with a little bit of softness. And I'm gonna selectively saturate these a little more, because it seems like we've got even more bits here that we didn't get selected the first time. I'll manually add some green to these pixels. There we go, that looks pretty good, I think. Yep, and then we can move on to the next tree. I think I'd like to do this conifer, pine, whatever. Again, I'm going to start out with the trunk, which is going to be pretty straight this time. And then the branches in a tree like this are gonna go horizontally. Doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of this is going to be obscured by the green stuff anyway. I'll trim it a little bit with the eraser tool. Bring it a little lower again. Like that. And once again I'm going to shade the trunk. Darker from the edges, brighter from the middle. And with these tiny lines, dark and bright lines going vertically, creating the appearance of bark. Just when you're doing this bark texture, just make sure that still overall it's going to be darker from the sides and brighter from the middle. You don't overdo the effect to the point where you're going to entirely lose the three-dimensional shading that makes the trunk look like a cylinder. And actually notice here, I think my trunk is a little too thin, so I'm gonna copy that bit, and I'm not gonna put it straight where it used to be. I'll just put it a little bit to the side. You just make sure nothing's too bright, nothing's too dark. It's more dark from the edges than it is from the middle. Yeah, I think that's good enough. I'll darken the whole thing. Not that much, maybe about there is good. Shade the branches too. Well, shade more like just scribble and random horizontal lines across them so that they're not of equal brightness. There we go. And next let's do the same thing as before, where we create a layer underneath this thing. Let's pick some deep green color appropriate for a pine tree, and then I think I'm just gonna simulate the green parts by oops, what am I doing? I need the normal brush because I'm drawing stuff. So I'm just gonna maybe do this. I have never drawn a pine tree in my life before. I hope this is gonna turn out alright. There, that's good enough. Again, I'll do a little bit of trimming. On the branches as well. Okay. Then, because I'm feeling lazy, actually what I'm gonna do is a little workaround. I'm just gonna duplicate this layer of green stuff, mirror it, increase its brightness a little bit, maybe move some parts around a bit like that. And then erase some bits. So now I didn't have to draw all of this shit all over again. Okay, and then let's do the top layer. Pick a brighter green brush. Actually make it even brighter. So you see these things kind of go in like tiers, like separate levels. The branches don't go out randomly like a bunch of fractals, but instead you've got like distinct different levels. Well, not so distinct always, but overall. And since we're always going to have branches that come directly towards us, they're coming towards our perspective, and they're also going to have the green stuff on them. We're not really going to see those branches themselves, but we're going to see the leaves, so just make sure you draw it on top of the trunk as well, just like here. And next up, what I think I'm gonna do is I'll combine these layers, but actually before I do that, I'm gonna figure out an easier way so I can just select all of the green stuff afterwards. It's, you know, not having to use the whole color selection tool, you know, because sometimes if we're drawing trees of a different kind, you know, the colors can be a little more muddled up between the branches and the leaves, and there's no easy way to just select all of them. So I'm just gonna make sure I only select the branch, the trunk and the branches. The way I'm gonna do this is select all of this stuff and invert the selection and then my inverted selection kind of overlaps some of the green bits on this top layer, so I'm going to select those. Actually, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just do the for, you know, color pick method. Fuck it. That'll do. Yeah, there was some proper way of doing it, but I don't remember what I was doing, and I kind of forgot it for this tutorial, so whatever. Right, and now we've got the green stuff selected. So as you can see, and as we mentioned earlier, things kind of go in little tiers here. So I'm going to shade the top and bottom of each tier. bright on the top, dark on the bottom, bright on the top, dark on the bottom. Maybe model it up a little bit. And then the far edges I might make a little darker, and the middle ever so slightly brighter. And then also the top left of the whole tree, the top part and the left side, maybe make those a little bit brighter, and then the other side a little darker. So now we got like a three-dimensional shading going on here. And finally let's shade the branches too. So as we did last time, just invert the selection and just darken some of the branches that are in deep inside the green territories. And then just remove the selection as I just did and apply some touch-ups, final touch-ups afterwards. Again, I don't like how dark some of those darker bits turn out, so I'm gonna adjust the levels. And then I'm gonna use the saturation up/down brush. Saturate some of those less saturated bits. Maybe I'm gonna make that trunk look a little darker again on this side. I guess this is more of a broadcast than a tutorial. Oh, this kind of shows me figuring out some things on the fly. Although I realize it can waste the time of the viewers, but it is what it is. You'll get better at shading the more you do it. Bit of a white bit there that I don't like there as well. Okay, there we go. And once again, I'm gonna hide some of those transparent bits inside because I don't like them. I'm not gonna hide all of them, so I'm just gonna select all of the visible pixels, invert the selection, and this time the way I'm gonna do this is I'm just gonna pick a dark green color that's already present on the image. Use brush up the middle. I'll leave it on the outsides. And if you notice that the trees actually, all the green stuff and the branches are actually too thick, that you should be able to see through more of it, you can just do that afterwards. Just add little holes on the edge of the image with the eraser brush. Just make sure you don't get any floating pixels. If you're a perfectionist, you could spend hours doing this, but even if I had left this tree as it was, like, I don't know, 5 minutes ago, and just put it in a game, I don't think most people would really notice anything. But, we're artists. We like to find flaws in our work and just continually improve it. Sometimes if you got like a bit on the tree that you just can't get right, and you see that you've got it right on another part of the tree, you can just literally just copy it. Like, I feel this area is a little too dark, too smooth. This area has got it right, so I'm just gonna copy paste it crudely like that. Nobody's gonna notice really. Trees are repeating patterns anyway. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I might brighten up a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. So I'll just leave it at 2 trees for this tutorial. Oh, I hope this gives you a better understanding of how you might draw foliage in pixel art, and actually how you might approach drawing a tree overall, even if you're like doing pencil art or something else, with the obvious exception that you're not going to have all the layers and other digital tools we have at our disposal. Anyway, thanks for watching. Good luck with pixel editing.